Hi, my name is Eiji Kawamura, and I'm a third-generation fruit and vegetable grower here in Southern California, and I'm the founding co-chair of Solutions from the Land. I'm standing here in front of my green bean field, and while many people might say I'm an urban farmer, I like to describe myself as a farmer in an urban area where enormous urbanization came towards us as we were farming here over the years. I'm here to talk about an exciting handful of examples of great stewardship, great agricultural activity by some of our partners from around the country. In 2021, early in 2021, Solutions from the Land will have a project coming out, and we thought what we'd like to do is give you a little farm tour, if you will, of different regions around this country and showcase, if you will, the great things that are being done on farm, on ranch by so many of our members and so many of the producers around the country. Solutions from the Land for years has been an advocate for the stewards, the managers of the landscapes that we live in and live around, the ranchers, the farmers, the foresters. And we've always maintained and we always understood that the focus on agriculture these days has been not as broad as it could be, as it should be. Sure, we produce food, fiber, energy, and other materials, but the other benefits that come from agriculture, from managing landscapes correctly, is part of that dynamic that is now taking stage front and center throughout the world. We're talking about how do you feed a planet of 8 billion people soon, with potentially 10 billion people on this planet by the year 2050. And we know many things, and that is if climates are changing, if the resource base is threatened, if the understanding of agriculture doesn't exist within those urban populations, then we've got tremendous challenges in front of us. And yet, this is a time for excitement. This is a time for transformative understanding, if you will, that agriculture holds within its endeavor all the solutions that you would ever want to see. In fact, the Sustainable Development Goals that were put out by the United Nations are in many ways a blueprint for how agriculture is involved with the human endeavor, involved with a world that is getting better, not getting worse. We've got tremendous opportunity then to bring agriculture forward in a handhold with the stakeholders, all those who eat on this planet, and help ourselves then all move forward as we look to transform this world and turn it into a world that has abundance, that has choices, that has ecosystem services that are enjoyed by all. We believe with all our hearts, those of us who work the land, those of us who live here on these lands and work in agriculture, that the future has never been brighter. Our toolbox has never been more robust. And the activities that we do day in, day out, whether it's through a pandemic, whether it's through droughts or floods, we need assistance, we need help, we need understanding. And in return, we will promise to do our best year after year, harvest after harvest, to continue to provide that abundance and those choices that allow us then to live as opposed to just simply survive. And so from Southern California to Southeast Massachusetts, I'd like to hand it off to Adrian Muller, whose family produces cranberries there, and all the wonderful things they're doing on their operation in this amazing time of transformative sustainability. Adrian, take it away.
Thank you, AG. I wish you could be here with us, but happy to share our harvest with you. As you can see from behind me, we got about 4 to 5 inches of snow yesterday, which has put a little bit of the brakes on everything here, but we'll get going soon. My family began growing cranberries about 30 years ago with just 4 acres. This is a very exciting time for us as we believe cranberries have so much potential to deliver the outcomes AG mentioned. Cranberries are no-till, long-lived perennial plant, so they conserve soil and store carbon. Our capacity for growth is expanding as we get new hybrids from universities, partnerships, and crossbreed our own within the grower community. Here in Massachusetts, cranberry farms also preserve 60,000 acres of wetlands and wildlife habitat. We are passionate about growing and producing something that's so nutritious, but also offers so many other outcomes and benefits. As we preserve these wetlands, we have found that with the marshes we've acquired over the years, There's a need for renovation and improvement for efficiency and sustainability. To help with those needs, we've worked and formed key partnerships with NRCS, leading universities, cooperative extension services, technical and private partners, as well as other growers and those within the Ocean Spray Cooperative, of which we're part of. Looking around, just a couple of things that have happened here and we've accomplished together are creating pollinator habitat. We need about 1 million to 1.5 million bees per acre for pollination each year, and establishing farm reservoirs for closed tailwater recovery. Tailwater recovery allows us to keep water on our farms and use it throughout the growing season for multiple purposes. We also work with our towns and municipalities to address their challenges in stormwater runoff and seasonal flooding, which is certainly a solution it's quite different. This season was one example of how we need to be more creative than ever to do all of this and stay in business. We have been in a drought the last year or so. We've also had very mild winters, which have drained our reservoirs on farm, making our harvest process very slow and protecting our crop a little bit dangerous. Annually, we've had challenges also with the ability to ice sand. Ice sand allows us to drive on top of the ice once we get cold temperatures and drop sand over it. This practice needs to have changed, but is critically important as it helps propagate new growth, lock in carbon, and also acts as a biological pest control. Here on our farm, we recognize the need to work in partnership with our neighbors, our fellow growers, and in the global arena at the same time. We may need to do something very different to produce a healthy and sustainable crop in the next few years, or maybe even next year. I don't really recall too many soft-spoken farmers who aren't willing to roll up their sleeves and get it done. But I think now more than ever, those farmers need to have a voice and a seat at the table with local, state, federal, and global leaders as they discuss and shape policies that impact our capacity to produce the food and the solutions that we need. I feel farming is where tradition meets innovation, and we have a great opportunity in front of us to work together to ensure food security and climate-smart solutions as we move forward. On that note, I'm very excited to introduce to you my fellow SFL advisor, Pat Otoole, who is doing some very amazing work on a different landscape with different challenges. Pat?
Hi, I'm Pat Otoole, and this is my wife Sharon. We and our family run the Ladder Ranch on the Colorado-Wyoming border. We like to tell people we raise cattle, sheep, horses, dogs, and children, but within the context of conservation. And we're always trying to find the right balance between our livestock and farming business and the wildlife that we have in significant numbers here. The idea that we have put into this operation is how do we find the right balance in how our animals perform, the right balance in how we utilize our resources, the right balance in how we utilize our time and our employees, because we really can see that things are happening in a significant way. Our water resource, everything that drives what we do is a range operation, is being affected by climate change, a warming situation that is clearly affecting how we make our living.
We pride ourselves on being flexible. We've always, every year is a little different, but in these days of climate change, we're having to really rethink the whole operation and how we do things and how it fits in with the context of our water resource, our grass resource, our human resource. We've been here since 1881, and it's our hope to be here at least another 140 years.
I was going to point out this mountain over here. So we're standing in Wyoming. That mountain's in Colorado, and we're doing a project right now where we had to drill a well, and we have drilled wells in many places because we've lost so much of our springs in these droughts that have happened really over the last several years. We're on the headwaters of the Colorado River, and so we're going to have to be proactive in developing water resources. That mountain, for example, has lots of grass, but if it doesn't have water, we can't utilize it, or neither can the wildlife. The forests that we graze on have not been taken care of. We're not producing the water, for example, on the Colorado River. There's probably over 100,000 to 200,000 acre feet of water not coming down the upper Colorado River because the forest isn't functioning. And so part of our operation is going to be not only with our grazing, but with working with our conservation district and various partners with the Fish and Wildlife Service and the NRCS, is getting that forest back to functioning, which will have multiple benefits for the kind of operation that we run.
If we look down here at this meadow, you'll see that there's both cattle and sheep grazing there. And that's part of what we do is we use multi-species grazing to improve the resource and help the landscape.
And what we find, my daughter Megan said, if you just graze a monoculture, you get a monoculture. And so with both our cattle, sheep, with the wildlife and profusion that we have here, we're trying to find that right balance of feed base and healthy forest and healthy rangelands. So as we look into the future and deal with carbon and the various issues that we know are going to be important, it's going to be farmers and ranchers who make the decisions of how to utilize their land to maximize the benefits. And we sure feel like the Ladder Ranch has a good story to tell, and we're really proud to be able to tell it. I'm going to now sign off and send you off to Trey Hill from the Chesapeake area, a good friend of mine who's also on the board of the Solutions from the Land.
Thank you. My name is Trey Hill with Harborview Farms, currently running it as the CEO of Harborview Farms. We're located on the eastern shore of Maryland, about an hour and a half from Washington, D.C., Baltimore, and Philadelphia. So many of you would say that's very fortunate, but as a farmer, you might think it's unfortunate. For me, it's been very fortunate. I've gotten to interact with lots of different folks from all over with all kinds of different backgrounds. I work with all kinds of different environmentalists. I've become an environmentalist myself, and we are actively working with the different environmental groups to try to tweak the way we farm. We currently have a focus on environmentalism, particularly as it pertains to nutrient management and whether or not those nutrients affect the Chesapeake Bay. But we also have a strong focus on trying to come up with solutions for climate change. To me, food production and climate change are both huge social issues, and both can be addressed by farmers. Farmers, I think, can be big contributors to this. I can show you what I mean. Climate smart farming consists of cover crops, growing corn and beans. And you can see our old cover crop there on the ground in between the corn rows. So the soil is never uncovered. If you look out here, you can see a couple deer jumping out of the corn, running from the combines. And now, after the corn harvesters come through, you can see the corn stalks covering the soil. Here in Maryland, we've definitely partnered with the different environmental groups. And for me, that's changed the way I think about farming. We've completely changed the way we farm and the way we think about it. So we're using extremely high technology. All of these machines are steering themselves. They are recording the yields as they go across the field. We have satellite images of the field so we can track the progress of the cornfield as it goes across, as it goes throughout the year. This, I think, is making the most efficient, most environmentally sound food production system the world has ever seen. So you can see we've got the same machines running, and they're filling up with corn and then dumping. So we're at the field with the harvesters just a minute ago, and being the truck driver that I am today, I'm taking it down to the mill. This is our grain system where we're unloading. You can see the corn unloading from the tanks. So they go up in our legs and then down through the dryers and then into the big tanks for storage until the markets allow us to sell it so we can get as much as we can for our product, as it will then get fed and ground for chicken feed for the local chicken industry here on the Delmarva. Here in Maryland, we have a strong relationship to the waterways, the Chesapeake Bay in particular, and all its rivers and tributaries. There's a huge social movement to get them protected and to keep it clean so that people can maintain recreational activities as well as businesses and industry around it. One of the big parts of cleaning up the bay has definitely been agriculture. So here we've had a great culmination of lots of collaborations between environmentalists and the farm community, where we've managed to get funding for programs like cover crops, waterways, wetland restorations, all these different things that have helped us become better farmers. It's unusual that environmentalists and farmers work together, but we found that we have a common goal, and that is to make the environment a little bit better and to do a better job. For me as a farmer, it's made me more efficient, it's made me more financially stable, it's made me more sustainable as a whole. In other words, my farm will be able to be maintained for a much longer time because of these practices. We're building soil organic matter, we're sequestering carbon into the soil, we're even selling carbon credits on an open market so that we can hopefully make a profit while we're helping solve climate change. All of this is part of an efficient food production system that we definitely believe in. So I hope all is well, and off to you, Fred. Thanks.
Well, thanks, Trey. And I also want to say thanks to Pat and Adrian and AG for your thoughts on what you're doing on your farms and ranches, because as you can see, there's a lot of diversity on our farms and ranches in the United States. My name is Fred Yoder. I'm co-chair of Solutions for the Land. I'm a 4th generation farmer. My son's the 5th generation farmer. We raise corn, soybeans, and wheat here in West Central Ohio. Now, this report is to showcase farmers like these 3 that you've heard from, and how do we accomplish these SDGs, or they're really called Sustainable Development Goals. How do we do that? So the question is, how do we enable farmers and ranchers to do these things? And how do we get them to deliver certain things, like productivity? Farms always thrive on productivity. We have to be very productive. And it's also got to be very sustainable. How do we develop nutritious food to whatever the consumer is demanding that we do? How do we deliver clean water? How do we use water more efficiently so we have ways to make it last longer, especially in dry years? How do we continue to increase our biodiversity? Because we tend to be in a more of a monoculture type of system today with industrial commodities like corn and soybeans. And finally, how do we develop ways for climate mitigation? How do we be more climate smart? Well, the one thing we have to make sure we understand is, number one, there is no such thing as a one-size-fits-all. We are very diverse, as you heard in some of the presentations. There is no silver bullet. There's not a one thing we can do that everyone can make it work. So that's what means we have to have a lot of different things in the toolbox. In other words, there's lots of silver buckshot. And that means that if you have a tool in the toolbox that you can pull out, maybe a multiple amount of tools that you can pull out for your farm and implement them, that you can all be a lot more successful because of the different tools that are available to you. It has to be a systems approach. In other words, what may work for you, even for your neighbor, might not work for you, but you have to figure out what tools you need to make it profitability. So the other thing too that we have to do is it has to be sustainable. We have to have good return on our investment. It's got to be profitable. Farmers can't stay in business unless they're profitable. And the other thing we're going to have to do is find out different ways that we have multi-stakeholder partnerships. You know, farmers are notoriously very independent, but we're going to have to change some of that independence and trade it in for more interdependence. There's lots of farmers that can benefit from some of the groups that would like to come up with the same outcomes, like different NGOs, different DAG groups, different government folks that can help us get to where we want to. And that brings us to policy. What kind of policy do we need to be successful? Well, in my mind, the first thing we need is have enabling policy, decide what we want the outcomes to be, and then find out what kind of policy it takes to make that work. We also need a safe harbor provision where we can go ahead and come up with new different ways to do things, but maybe we haven't even thought about that, but we don't want to be penalized and maybe throw us out of another program. You know, when I bought the farm back from my father back in 1988, I asked him, as we signed the papers, is there any lasting thing you want me to know? And he said, I just ask you, leave it in better shape than what you got it. If you look down here, this is cover crop coming. And back when I was farming with Dad, we didn't have cover crops. We didn't know what cover crops were. Now it's a regular policy that everything that we farm, we have a cover crop. When I take the corn off and that next field here, it's going to have a cover crop as soon as we're done harvesting the corn. The question becomes, is how do we leave this whole system in better shape for the next generation?
Hey Adrian, Pat, Trey, and Fred, thank you so much for providing us with a preview of how your farms and ranches are delivering multiple solutions from the land. The nutritious food, fiber, clean water, renewable energy, and biodiversity, and resilience to climate change. Additional information on the expanding toolbox of progressive farmers, ranchers, and foresters across the globe will be detailed in the comprehensive report that Solutions from the Land will be releasing early next year. Written by real farmers, the report showcases the agricultural renaissance already unfolding in our fields and will outline what farmers need now and in the future to deliver high-value solutions that will improve livelihoods and the planet. We invite you to join us and share your ideas and experiences in delivering pragmatic solutions to global challenges. Thank you for listening. Have a great harvest season.